Welcome everyone to another podcast episode. I'm good, joined here by Mr. Slowly today. I hope you're doing well, my man.
Yeah, what's up? What's up? It's good to
Uh,
be here.
it's all good, man. We're gonna be joined by my sister pretty soon, but as a stand-in, we also have the Mad Ginger over here, who's going to also possibly give us a lot of good advice and all that. Now he's left. No, he's not left. He's still here.
I was considering it.
He's considering it, dude. The moment I started talking, he's like, "What's this bro yapping about again?" Anyhow, now, so you guys have seen the topic now by the title and everything. We are going to be discussing another spicy topic. And I think it's a question that, let's say, a few years back, even you asked, and I think people would like look at you with funny eyes and stuff. But I think it's a question that's becoming more and more, well, debatable nowadays. And that's the simple question:
Sure.
is there a point where we think indie games are going to start to have the same pull or um, the same like kind of influence as what AAA games does. And the reason I thought of this podcast and all that is for various reasons that we're going to discuss into. But I just think, all right, I want to take commercially out of the window because I think the thing is like commercially it's too much up in the air. That's like where in
Yeah.
indie game completely succeeds or completely fails, or it's just on an indie game budget or sales. Like their success isn't measured by the same standard as AAA success. In the same sense, like
Oh yeah.
let's take the newest COD for example, right? We take the newest COD Modern Warfare 3. We know what they
Right.
expect from that. They want to go. We want a sales number that's probably matching last year's or higher than last year's. That's what they're going for. It has to be the most profitable COD of all time, whatever the cost of that
Yep.
might be. And that's what they're going off of. An indie game is like, well, if I can just get a profit, I'll be happy because then I can keep my lights on. So the standard's not really the same. And I want to say like even indie projects like can spring up out of nowhere and be overnight sensations and success and stuff like that. Like we're gonna get into multiple examples now, but like check with the most recent one, Lethal Company is made by a single developer that I believe learned coding in Roblox. And he made Lethal Company, I think, for fun or whatever, put it on Steam, and that game has blown up. It has blown up, people, underneath all the other games that have now completely blown up. But mind you, that's like one example. Now, I want to maybe start off with the first thing. I think both of us know, and I think more or less the others know that are watching this know what an indie game is. Like we're just gonna say
Yep.
it's a game with not a lot of budget, not a lot of resources, not a lot of capital. It's developed by someone independently. It's not usually published by someone else like a publisher. And it's a team of small people. It's like a small amount. Like I just said, Lethal Company was made by one guy, but it could be a team of 10, 20, stuff like that. And that's the
Yeah.
nature really of an indie game. But now when we talk about indie games, you need to be familiar of where you started with indie games and what our current feelings are. So, from your side, do you maybe recall more or less the first time you saw or played an indie game?
Hmm. I mean, I've played a lot of games.
Yeah.
Uh, some of them I wouldn't even know if they were indie, but I'll just go with the most recent one that I know, like on the top of my head. Sea of Stars, and
Sea
that
of
game
Stars.
is really good.
That's a
Yeah.
very good example again of another one that did really well in 2023 that got voted for awards. Like
Yeah.
I'm not talking about some indie award show. I'm talking about main award show. Sea of Stars got within the nominations, especially in the RPG genre. So
Yep.
it's another great example of one. Yeah, it's difficult. Like I wish, like in hindsight, I wish I kind of did keep track of it because I mean, back in the day, obviously I didn't know what an indie uh, or an triple A was. I just played games and I played what I found popular and stuff like that. Now, obviously, that is the consensus
Yeah.
of a
Same.
kid. They want to go and play the games that all their friends are playing. Everyone's playing that like is popular and whatever because they want to like see what's about. Like they obviously have this urge to see. Oh, I want to play the new big game. Oh, it's so cool. The new COD or the new FIFA or the
Yep.
new Need for Speed or whatever. That is like a natural urge for a lot of kids and for people with FOMO. Like that is one of the natural things, especially in gaming. We talked about what the effect FOMO may have on gamers in the other podcast, but I think the other thing is like if you're not aware of an indie game, like it might sneak up you. But I'll try and trace back. I know one of the first times I saw a game, I didn't know it was an indie game at that time because of how popular it became. But if you look back, it was definitely an indie game. The first indie games I really played and came across was actually the Five Nights at Freddy's series, which that was 10 years ago now. So that's a 10-year-old franchise by now. But like, I mean, that was made by, I think, Scott Cawthon, which is one developer. I'm not sure if he had a team or not, but I know it was made almost only by him. And, well, I don't need to say much about it. We all know how popular that became in terms of how it blew up with the fans and the lore and the franchise when it comes to games. The fact that it has comic books, stories, hentai probably out there, and a movie. A movie that came out last year. That's the highest, I think, highest grossing, or maybe second highest grossing video game movie. I'm not sure who won between that one and Super Mario Bros. In the end. But like, I mean, one of the highest grossing video game movies ever. The highest grossing horror movie as well. Out of all the horror ones, Five Nights at Freddy's was the highest horror movie, and that includes like main cinema. So that's a bloody good achievement for what started as an indie game. To give you guys an idea how
that's really good.
How it can take off if everyone's got the right idea. But yeah, indie games did back in the day. It was I think it was more difficult for indie games to take roots. Like I think the further back you try and think, the less and less examples you're going to think of indie games. And the thing about that is also the standard of video games. We talked about this in the previous one as well. The standard video games, on average, is better these days. It just is because the standard is like everyone now has a good tool set, everyone has a good idea of how to make a game, and everyone has a general consensus of what a good game is made out of, something that people will play. Back then, people were still figuring that out, and like I said, there might have been really high highs back in the day with like Halo and World of Warcraft and Gears of War and all those stuff. Hello! Are you here?
Yup.
Okay, how are you doing?
Good.
The ginger approves of you being here.
Let's see if this...
If your Wi-Fi is strong enough, I doubt, but we'll see. Anyhow, while you...
Depends if Kian is using it to play Clash of Clans.
Oh yeah, there's another indie game for you. Clash of Clans. That actually could have technically been my answer as well. Like we know how big that is, but when Supercell made it, I think there were 10 or 20 people. And now they're in the thousands of like employees and money. But yeah, we were talking just now about how we started with indie games, how we started to figure out to like discover indie games when we were small or young and stuff like that, and how we came across it for the first time. Now I know, and that's why I also was keen on inviting you. I know you are quite a big fan of indie games, especially. So, can you remember where you started with your indie games journey? I think me and you may have started at the same point, but it might be early if you remember something else.
At the moment, just like Soma comes to mind.
I think you've got something earlier than Soma.
Oh no.
Soma.
There's a... Yeah.
No, I think you can say earlier, because me and you watched it together. What about when Markiplier first played Five Nights at Freddy's? Because that's an indie game.
No, but I mean like play. I mean like my play.
Okay.
Definitely the first played one was Soma, but the first watched was definitely Five Nights at Freddy's.
Okay. No, I get it. Because, yeah, I know my sister is quite, and that's another topic we'll touch on later, is like, I know my sister loves the way to look at indie games, especially because obviously with an indie game, there's almost a more creative freedom of it. You get an idea of like, oh, I want to try really cool stuff. They don't have the risk that AAA games put on themselves to say like, oh, but we want to have sales. We want to like make record-breaking sales. So if we try and do this and people don't like it, you know, they're not going to get those sales.
Yeah.
That's why something like COD would never stray too far from the path, for better or for worse, because they know they want to make them sales. But for example, if you take another weird shooter like, Metal Hellsinger, for example, that you
Yeah.
played, what an amazing idea for a shooter. Taking something like a Doom-like shooter, but making it a rhythm game based on heavy metal music.
Yeah, dude. That goes hard.
That was a great game also that came out, I think, last year or 2022.
It was 2022, yeah.
But again, like those are the creative freedoms risk you take. And I'll touch on that topic later because, like we said with the coverage of how games are covered nowadays, like how social media is playing a huge role in this. But we'll start off with the basics first. Like we said, back in the day, the further you look, you're going to start to struggle to find indie games that you found memorable or really good the further you go back. And that's what I said, like the high highs of gaming you might have seen back in the day, maybe as your Halo, your Gears of War, your Half-Life, all of those, like early 2000s. But the lowest of lows is also there. Like that's why it averages out less than today's gaming. Like there were really low lows back in the day. If it's, maybe the licensed video gaming you got in the 90s, that like movies that became video game adaptations were terrible, for example.
Yeah.
Or indie games that like they tried to do stuff but they just didn't have the resources and stuff, and like the games were full of bugs, it didn't run properly, it wasn't like optimized, whatever the case may be. They ran terribly, so people avoided them and stuff like that. And well, as time went on, obviously they got access to more resources and people got more knowledge of what they want to put into video games. That's kind of the point of like something like this, is where the more and more knowledge we get, we're supposed to impart to other people, pass it down, and that's supposed to help them to come to the same point as us, where they get their own knowledge, they become better, and then they pass how they became better down, and it goes on and on and on, and it's supposed to evolve. So the same went really for indie games, in terms of like what they went through and stuff like that. But now I want to feel it out with you. Like when we say, okay, do we agree with the conception that we have here that like indie games has a more is starting to become more and more influential, is starting to take away a lot of the attention that AAA games has gotten over like decades
Yeah, for
now.
sure. Oh, yeah.
We think that, yeah. Because I think that now as well, especially like I said with what we saw in the award shows, the fact that like indie games can now regularly come into award shows and possibly even get an award.
Yeah.
The fact that they can garner up millions and millions of views, millions and millions of players playing those games concurrently, like the fact that like they can do any of that on a budget that's this small, or a team that's this small, like that's trying to tell you like that's more or less what it's going to go about. But yeah, now let's try and discuss the ways. How do you think the ways have been that like how has indie games pulled it off nowadays? Like how, for both of you, do you think has indie games sort of gotten over that hump now?
Right. You want to know how? Because AAA games and quote unquote popular games are becoming saturated. Everyone is following the same rule, the same structure, the same fucking, oh dude, battle pass, season pass,
Season
fucking
pass.
dude, fucking like uh gear levels, fucking like dude, it's so fucking saturated, it's so boring, and then like you just get like the fucking giga chat like indie games that come out and they're like, yeah, but we don't give a shit about this stuff. We
Yeah,
just
no,
want like
they
a full story, bro. Even dude, look at fucking Baldur's Gate. I know it's not like an indie game, but like that was like the biggest like fuck you to like AAA studios, and it was like holy giga chat, dude.
I mean,
It
Larian
was
is not
sick.
big. Larian is not a big studio by any stretch of the imagination if you compare it to Bethesda. which was supposed to bring out Starfield, which is supposed to be, oh, it's the second coming of RPG Starfield. It's coming out this year. And then, well, it got blown out of the water by Baldur's Gate 3. I
But dude,
mean,
it's just an oversaturation of like the same concepts, the same formula. It's just really boring because like you kind of just with these AAA studios, you kind of just know what the game is going to be, how it's going to feel, whatever. Indie games, it's always different. Sure, you get like 2 or 3 that are like somewhat the same, but like the fucking like 50 others of them are like uniquely different.
yeah, I think uniquely different enough. Now, Chrissy Chris, from your side, what do you think?
Um, I definitely agree with the fact that most of the more popular games are a lot the same, and you know what to expect. And when you open an indie game, you get hit in the face, and you're just like, "What the fuck did I just play?" So, like for example, if you look at like a bunch of like indie horror games, but like small games, like nothing major, like stuff you wouldn't like normally find. Like you would just be like scrolling through Steam, and there would be like this random little game, and you're like, oh, I'll play this. Like especially the low quality, like pixelated indie horror games are now like really hidden. But like it's so random. Like there's literally this one I think it's like Squirrel Hunter or some shit, and then you're going out into the woods hunting big ass fat squirrels, and then you take the pelts and you staple them onto a wall. And then there's like seven
America.
days or something.
America!
Yeah, there's like 7 days or something to meet the quota of the amount of squirrels that you want because you're decorating your dead body's wife with squirrel pelts. And then
What
on
the
the last day, and
Nice.
then on the last
Hang on.
day, you have to fight the boss squirrel. So it's like the most random shit ever, but it's not something you'll find anywhere else.
Yep.
That's what the love letter about India is really about, is the fact that you are independent. God. Like, if you, like, that's the thing that she mentioned. If you were to pitch that idea to a publisher that an indie game doesn't have, if you had to sit that, I want you to imagine that. You're the publisher, Warner Brothers, your Activision, Ubisoft, any of those companies. Someone sits down and says, this is the game we want to make, and they sit down like, giving them all our money. What the hell are they? Cut the project. Just make a live service game. What are you doing? Just make a live service game. Come on.
Yep.
Battle Pass. We said we want every 3 months we want Battle Pass content and give them one cosmetic skin they can buy for $90. None of this other nonsense. What is this? So yeah, I think the just the freshness of ideas, because I think indie games, like, that's the thing that indie games understand also, where, as I said, the AAA game, they're meeting sales and stuff. They know how to make a good game. We've been over this. They know how to make a good game. They know exactly what they want to put in to keep you playing. They know exactly what they can do to keep people invested. They know exactly the model. For an indie game, for you to have any stretch of success because of the sheer volume of games that are, like, how much games is released at this point. Like, I want you to understand how many games. I forgot the number the other day, but it has to be in the hundreds of thousands of game on Steam by this point. How on dear earth do you expect to stand out as an indie person who's desperate to not only break even, but maybe make like a tiny bit of profit? Like, how on earth are you going to stand out if you're making the same formula as the AAA guy? Like, it's in your
Oh, bro, you just make
nature.
something absurd.
You have to
You
stand
literally
out.
post it on like TikTok.
Yeah, you have to stand out. That's
Some shit.
literally how you survive. Not even like have success. That's how they're gonna survive the game. Is they have to have something so out there, so revolutionary or innovative or just WTF, as my sister bangs her shin on the table or whatever. Um, so
Mm.
WTF, like that, people are going to want to play that. I think that's the biggest thing, or being aware of cool trends and stuff like that. Like, for example, all those indie guys that sat there and made all those backroom games when backrooms was a massive thing. Those weren't AAA guys going out there and making those games. Those were indie games. Indie games because they decided, oh, we have a cool idea. We gotta get this out quick. We can capitalize on a good trend and stuff like that, and make, our game and try and make something absurd out of that. So that's how to survive. I think the other thing also, as you said, that's one of the only things I like live service for. Live service has now become a big part of AAA games. That's how they make the money. That's the model they use. That's the business model. That's how they keep their game afloat for years and years and years, and having the service up and running and all that. They know exactly what they want to do. Even those ones that promise it's not a live service game. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is not a live service game. I promise. I promise. No, don't look at that battle pass. That's not a battle pass. No, I promise. We won't kill Batman. I promise. No, so like all of those, they know what they do. They know how to make the money. They're completely content with that. That's how they're going to go about it. But in that sense, because everything has a live service, the moment people get sick of it, the moment people want to do something else, accept that model. Because remember, a live service game expects you to be playing a game for years and years and years and years. That's the whole point of the live service. It's like you want to invest your time into it and maybe your money, but not even if you don't invest your money, you're investing your time into it. You're helping to keep their server counts up. You're helping keep their popularity up and all that. It doesn't even matter if you put your money. If you put your time in, they're happy already. So, if you're really sick of that, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Oh, that's a cool little indie game. This thing will take me a few hours to complete, and it'll be a little fun, little distraction. Oh, let's play an indie game. Like, I think live service has almost accelerated that because people are getting burnt out by live service and the concepts and it's just there's so much clutter really at this point when it comes to games like that. Because as I said, the sheer rate at which games is releasing these days, you're playing one live service game, and then the next month, the next big live service game comes up. Oh my gosh, I'm not even finished with this one. I want to play this one. I want to play this one. Oh, it's like they're starting to play 2 and 3 simultaneously, and you're starting to feel a lot of burnout. And then you want to kind of just wind down. You want to play something else. Don't even want to think about anything, and that's when your mind switches to, oh, there must be an indie game that I'm gonna go and find. I think it's a big acceleration of what happens. And I think the other one that's particularly helped with this is obviously, as I said, the sheer rate at which gaming is moving, like the speed at which gaming is moving at this point. Like I said, with the FOMO and all that. But the other great part of the internet and of YouTube and all those platforms that like push gaming forth and like where gaming is really popular is the fact that you can get exposure on your indie game. Because
Yep.
I want to ask you an honest question. Take Five Nights at Freddy's even as an example if you want. How popular do you think, or how much of an influence do you think Markiplier had on that game?
Oh, a lot, dude. You
Like,
kidding me?
one of the first guys I think that did a playthrough of it, or one of the most popular playthroughs there was of Five Nights at Freddy's, and it's one of the biggest YouTubers on the platform. And he's sitting there, and I don't mean like he's playing it once and giving his thoughts. I mean he played the whole series. He played all the modes. I think he played the 420 mode, the one where you like all 4 of the AI are like on their most difficult setting and all that. Like he played everything. He made lore videos, I'm pretty sure. I think he made lore videos. I'm not quite sure about that. But that man,
He did also, but he also played like a lot of like the modded or the fan
modded
made versions as well. Yeah,
so
because there's a lot of fan based ones as
yeah,
well, which are also pretty good.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if that man didn't have that YouTube channel and that site and stuff to help push that game forward, like I think it would have still been successful. But I think you're telling me a man with, I think at that point maybe 10 million subscribers, a man with 10 million subscribers plays a game, and you can tell he's genuinely interested in it. He's genuinely loving this game. Everyone that subscribed to him was always going to think, oh, well, the guy I like watching likes this game. Maybe I should give it a try. And you've got 10 million people potentially buying your game. Like, it's a massive thing. And I think more
Yeah.
You're getting more of that, especially with with streamers and with YouTubers and stuff like that that's willing to try out other content because it's interesting and it's innovative, and people are willing to watch it because like people like watching indie games and stuff now because they don't know it, so it's like, oh, I don't want to spend my money on the indie game because I'm not going to show it like it, but my favorite YouTuber or someone that's quite famous is playing it. Let me go tune in, watch how it looks. Oh, that looks interesting. Maybe I'll put my money on that. So you're getting this really positive influence, and one of the only positive influences of the internet, really, is
True.
helping indie games and stuff like that. But you're getting that, and I mean, it's not just for indie games that have just released. I mean, look at one of our favorite little indie games in the recent time. Look at Among Us, which is a lovely little indie
Oh
game.
my god, bro.
I'm serious, dude. That game came out in 2018. When did it trend? When did it trend?
2020.
During
Lockdown.
COVID.
In COVID. And why did it trend out of nowhere 2 years down the line in COVID? Is because people started playing it,
Because Among Us.
and yeah,
Among Us.
everything after that came. Literally Among Us. Among Us saved. Well, I don't know if it saved lockdown,
August.
but it floated us down the river. Um, but it's literally that's the power of such influence. Like the fact that you can get such a mass of people to move towards even an indie game that they probably would have never in their right mind even looked at had someone not played it online. It's like a day and age you didn't have that in 2004. Even if you made a great game in 2004, like a great indie game, and people might have bought it. Yes, they might have bought it. No one on YouTube was there to upload and play your indie game. They would not. You know what they were doing in 2005, 2006, 2007? They were uploading the COD montages of sniper kills. Look at me with my sniper. That's what they were doing. They weren't like playing indie
Or
games
like remixing songs with gunfire or
with
whatever.
gunfire or whatever. That was early YouTube. So it wasn't playing this. But now that we've got to this point where the platform is so massive, and like I said, just as indie gamers want to stand out, YouTubers want to stand out. They want to also have their content up there. They want to also try something new. And the same goes for Twitch streamers. So what do? They try a new game, and maybe if it's cool enough, they get their views. They get content. They get people watching them. So it's kind of a harmonious relationship between the two, where both the biggest influence on the platform and the smallest people in the game can merge together and create something really unique and really well benefits both, really. Because I mean, the indie people wouldn't mind because oh yay, we're getting attention, more money. And these people are like, oh yay, we're getting more money because people are watching our content. So they go together really nicely. Um, the other thing that I think also makes indie games more possible to be better nowadays, and I want to say better in terms of like, I'm not saying the games like indie games in the past were bad, but what I'm saying is indie games or indie devs in the past didn't have money, just like they do now. But not everything was free in the past. You didn't have Unreal engines. You didn't have gaming engines just lying around. You didn't even know how to possibly even code that properly or code in gaming languages or have all this capital that you can invest in stuff like that. You were kind of just making that like out of your hopes and dreams and some glue basically to hold the game together. So
Yeah.
nowadays that you have massive tools like, well, Unity is obviously up there, although Unity's kind of crashed. But the other
Yeah,
gaming,
we don't talk about that.
the other two gaming engines, Godot, GameMaker, that's like already low end stuff and really helps your stuff. But Unreal Engine 5, the sheer amount of stuff you can do in Unreal Engine 5 for free is is unlike anything we've ever seen at any point or time in gaming. Like, if you even look at that meta human stuff they did, I love bringing that up because I mean, those stuff they basically look like you, me, and my sister here. They look as realistic as us, and it's for free. It's not like an indie game. Like an indie game person can have that in their game. An indie game person suddenly has all these assets they can put in their game. They suddenly have everything at their disposal. Now it's just a matter of like, obviously they need a lot of time because there's only 1, 2, or 3 of them or whatever, but they have everything that would have normally cost them money or resources or investments or whatever. It's right there, it's for free. Like it's changed the game really with how they can suddenly make it. And I think remember Unreal Engine 5 is very new in its life cycle. So we're gonna see projects that started in Unreal Engine 5 only in the next few years, meaning indie games that are made in Unreal Engine 5 is only going to appear in the next 2, 3, 4 years down the line. So we're going to see way more of this than we have yet. Keep that in mind as well. But yeah, do you remember maybe an indie game like that you've seen recently or a while ago that you actually thought, wow, that actually does look. Because obviously, look, indie games have charm. We can all agree on that. They don't look the best,
Yep.
but they have charm. Like my sister mentioned, there's those low quality horror games. They have their charm, they have yet any uniqueness, but like she said, they are low quality. But has there been an indie game recently where you've been like, ooh, that's an indie game?
I mean, shit, dude.
Um,
There's a lot of games.
There are a lot of games. That's why. That's why I'm asking. Do you like? Does any one of them stand out to you? That's like had a really like good look at it. Like in terms of, I'm not talking about. It doesn't have to be graphics. Let's just play. Let's just say, yeah, it's not graphics necessarily, but like art styles. I mean, think about art styles. Like games can have the most indie games can have the most beautiful art styles there is really, or artistic direction, or visuals, or whatever. One that, for example, for me, if you've ever seen the two Ori games, Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps, those are beautiful games. Beautiful games. And they're made by an indie dev. Like, the visuals on that is insane with how beautiful it looks. And I think that's also won an award recently. I think, but like, I think an award for either the art or the sound. But it just tells you the fact that an indie game won art or sound is already like massive, 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 massive for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, like those are the type of games. Like we're gonna see more of those marvels. I think once Unreal Engine's cycle comes around and stuff like that, and we're gonna see more of that. And then the other part of the coin, like I said, indie games are becoming more impressive. But what's also happening on the other side? And I think you can rattle off a few names here. AAA games have become less impressive sometimes. They've become.
True.
I'm not even talking about the live service stuff that like we used to. I'm talking about indie game or AAA games stinking it up with how disappointing they've been. Like in the year, I already gave a big example. Starfield. You might spin it, say, "Oh, it's good for Bethesda game or whatever." I don't care. It's a disappointment, dude. If you're telling me that game is the same quality as Skyrim, Skyrim was 12 years ago.
Dude,
Like,
it is. You just haven't explored like the fucking 2 planets that the game has. Like
bro,
you're not opening your mind.
bro, I'm sorry I didn't walk from the one radar station to the next that's 4 kilometers away and nothing happened across. And it's the exact same radar station that looks like a Skyrim dungeon with a few Draugr running around. And I'm trying to loot this thing. Oh wow, look, more houseplants I get to invade. And I get to pause here and eat my 10,000 cheese wheels. Because they haven't updated the engine. They're still using Creation Engine from back when they used Skyrim. Oh, Todd Howard says it's not a friggin' bug, it's the future. Yeah, no, I'm fine, eh? Starfield, if you're telling me from Skyrim to Starfield, there have been minor improvements and there have been like minor stuff there. It's been 12 years. You're an AAA dev. What have you been doing? What?
I mean, you're talking to the guy that made Fallout 76, where their fucking internet security was so shit that if you wanted to pre-order a shitty bag, your IP and all your details got leaked, and
The
people could just
founder's
like
bag.
DDoS you.
The founder's bag. I remember that. That was amazing.
Bro,
But
if you haven't watched the video, Instant Historian made like a great video on like the fucking disaster of Fallout 76.
I
I think
think
it's
you
called
sent
the
that to
Fall
me.
of
That's why I
76.
learned about the bag, dude. That was amazing. No, but like I said, like how, like it baffles me. It genuinely, but sometimes it happens. Look, it happens sometimes. Maybe it's the publisher that gets in the way. Like games I love now, like Cyberpunk, had a bad launch, and that was the publisher. That was a publisher getting in the way the whole time, and Cyberpunk had a bloody awful launch. And Starfield was disappointing, and I think you can rattle off how many. While I'm sitting here, try and rattle off a few names of really disappointing AAA titles in the last few years that you can think of.
Diablo 4.
Diablo 4 is one that was really disappointing. Christina, you think of any other games that you think that sucked?
Hmm.
I haven't been playing games a lot these days.
But like I said, you only watch indie games, so the thing is like you don't know about all these awful games that we're thinking. Atomic Hearts, disappointing game, wasn't it? Actually, I don't know if
Wait,
that was
was
made.
it?
Atomic Hearts. I think it had an alright thing because it had a Bioshock thing type of thing going for it. But from what I've
Mm.
heard, it was an incredibly boring story, and it didn't have the like it was bland in general. Like it had bland gameplay, bland tone, stuff like that. It didn't really reach us, but it might have been. Um, and I mean, Forspoken was terrible.
Oh yeah.
Forspoken was really
Oh,
terrible.
I don't know if this counts, but the King Kong game and the Golem game, bro, those two
Oh
games are
yeah, no,
just
the
fucking
Golem
elites.
one.
So and
The,
so
the
unfortunately
Golem one still
those were
scares
indie
me.
games, but those were no, well they were indie games or not indie games, but they were AA games, I think. But again, those two were made up by publishers, where they said, "Do you have a deadline like this, a deadline like that?" Like I think King Kong had a deadline of a year. Let me just point out, a video game takes about 4 or 5 years to make. You gave them a deadline of a year. You gave Gollum, I think, the same. Gollum, I'm not too sure about. Gollum, I know, is a bit up in the air, but Gollum was also really short. But they were triple A, but I think they were bigger than indie, so they might have been double A. But very disappointing. Very disappointing in terms of what they've got. Redfall was terrible as well.
Oh yeah.
That vampire
What a
game,
fucking disaster, dude.
and that was made by someone that I liked a lot. Arcane Studios. Arcane Studios is the same people who made Dishonored and Deathloop,
Yep.
and they made Redfall. Like it doesn't matter how much of a reputation you have. This is what happening. I mean, you could go as far as to say something like Halo Infinite was really bad or disappointing in terms of like
Yeah.
in terms of the Halo games, comparing it to other Halo games. I don't think it reaches the heights. And I mean, it has the same problem. Hey, look at that sexy guy back there. A very sexy guy. Um, no, I mean, like, I don't think it reaches the heights, and it falls into the same trap of live service. So it's even worse, really. So,
Yep.
like I said, I think it's two things that's like accelerating this as well. Like I said, the live service games are making everyone tired. They want to go back to indie games. They don't want to have this live service thing going for there. That's accelerating because everyone's using live service. A lot of AAA games, like I said, it's kind of like it's not more than what it usually is, but it's because we're supposed to become better. We're supposed to be better, but we're still seeing these failures in this day and age, like the AAA games that we've just mentioned. That makes it so glaring. The fact that we're still doing the same nonsense that we're doing 10, 15 years ago. But now it's still happening in AAA games. So now people are going like, you can't trust the AAA game anymore. I can't pre-order anymore. Because what if my game turns to be a pile of garbage on pre-order? And I have to
Mm.
wait for day one patches or whatever. Like if you've implanted that mistrust in your audience or whatever, it's already a big red flag for you as a AAA company. Because you're supposed to be the person that's making the or pioneering and going to make the next big video game, like the next massive video game, but you're not.
Mm.
And now we're kind of looking at the indie devs and saying, well, what you got? Because, I mean, you're willing to take risks. You're willing to possibly even listen to user or community feedback. You're willing to not make live service games. You'll actually make something fun, maybe. So let's check you out, rather, in terms of that.
Didn't Cyberpunk 2077 start with like a massive flop or something?
That's what I mentioned as well. Cyberpunk was made up by the publisher. They had a massive flop as well. They have recovered, obviously. It's a very, very good game now.
And No Man's Sky?
No Man's Sky was
Didn't
made
No
by
Man's Sky also have
yeah.
a flopped launch?
very flopped. I don't know if they were AAA because they were made by Hello Games, but I will say the efforts they have gone through, which is like this one guy I think named Scott or Alex or something. He's made every single update in No Man's Sky 3 for the past 8 years.
Bro, dude, if you see his fucking Twitter accounts, bro, his shit is literally just memes. Like, anyone who fucking comments about him or whatever, he just goes along with it. Like, he's actually just tanking it.
I think literally, like, I know, and the thing is, like, have you seen? You should see like I think every time No Man's Sky releases, like, oh, it's an update. This is what's in the update and stuff like that. Like, they tell you there's a patch coming. Kid you not, I like literally just like randomly got it one day when I was still playing No Man's Sky. I wanted to see what the new update's about. Like, I got the update. I looked at it, right? I kid you not, the YouTube comments like, Alex, please rest. It's been 8 years. It's okay. You've been forgiven. Please rest, man. He was going insane. Like, please rest. It was funny. But no, it's something we should still hold them accountable for. Even though some of them have redeemed themselves, not all of them. Not all of them. And like I said, we've now turned to indie games as possibly the more, well, let's just say it, the more reliable people. Because even though I might not like your indie game, the fact of the matter is you put so much passion into your game, it's infectious. You know? You can feel. You can feel when there's passion in a video game. Look at all the chatter around Baldur's Gate 3, for example. You can tell when people say, "Oh, the things they thought of," like, and I genuinely like the things that Baldur's Gate 3, Larian Studios really thought of was amazing. The fact that like the crucial quest item, the one that's supposed to protect you from the evil entities, if you were to accidentally throw that into a pit of lava that they do have in the game, if you were to throw it into a pit of lava, you don't just get a game over. You get an actual cutscene that shows the evil entity finding you, turning you into one of their mind-controlled slaves, and then the game is literally just a game over. Like, that tells you enough to know the effort they went through to think of that, right? So
Yeah.
you can tell when there's passion in a video game, and that's what you've been mentioning, Slow. You can tell when they're just going through the motions of making a live service. Make a live service game. Put this in the game. You know, add a few cool stuff. It's fine. Don't play it. As opposed to
You know,
someone.
it's also like
Yeah.
it's also like, you know, like in like the early '90s to like almost the late '20s, where like people were like really passionate about the games, and as soon as it went to like, you know, the online space, then like there was some like passion there, and then now it's just like the same thing again and again.
But it's like I
It's a
said.
never ending thing, and then
Oh no, sorry.
man,
No, like
nah, go on.
no. It's like
It's
it's
just it's
literally what you
boring.
said. It's like at some point there was a shift when the people up top decided, oh, it's like a business now. So I mean, I have to run like a business. I want to make profits. I want to make money.
Yeah.
I want to, be able to grow my organization. But like, at some point, the shift went totally away from the consumer to the top level, and it's wrong. It really is wrong because they're starting to get bit in the ass about it. They really are. For those that like think
And
like
listen,
that.
like I don't want to, like, you know, people who obviously work on these games, like, sure, they are passionate about it, but it's like the companies that like manage it, or like the head designer or the head leader of it, they don't give a shit. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, push this game at like fucking 50%, and then because like they've gotten into this mentality where it's like, yeah, we'll just release a game that's like 60% done, and then throughout, like, if it's a live service, throughout the 3 years or 10-year plan, we'll just add a patch and a patch and a patch and a patch. It's like, it's so fucking dumb. It's actually fucking tilting. Like, dude, I can't stand that shit.
But like I said, it's like they know. Oh my gosh, I thought that was your cat, Christina. I thought, like, how big is your cat? Well, I guess it's some sort of cat.
Yes, continue.
No, like I agree with what Leslie, because they know. Like I said, they have their life service. People say, don't worry about it. We'll just add the other content as when people join our game, and they'll complain about it. There's no content in this game, and then they're like, oh, we've heard you. We made a mistake on our part. We, you guys deserve better. So coming this Friday, we've got a new skin. Everyone's gonna be able to download this new skin to say, I'm sorry, and we
Oh
will.
hell yeah!
Yeah. Like, we've been doing
Love me
that for
some
so
free
long.
shit, bro.
Yeah. No, the last topic, I want to say possibly will lead to more people looking towards indie devs and stuff like that, is the recent stuff that's happened now with a lot of studios. Now, I don't know if you are aware of you of this, Christina, but I'll fill you in. Xbox and PlayStation have a war. Oh, shocker! They actively compete against each other. But however, like, obviously they have their consoles. That's their biggest selling point. Obviously, they're like, oh, buy an Xbox, buy a PlayStation. Everyone's got their perks and stuff like that. Doesn't really matter which one you play. But now they've gone over and said, well, and the last gen, we saw the first taste of what something like an exclusive was. Well, not really last gen. I lie. It's been there for a few years, but it's for the first time it's been like marketed as an exclusive. When God of War came out,
Mm.
it was like, it's a Sony exclusive. Or when Gears of War, the new one came out, it's an Xbox exclusive. Forza's an Xbox exclusive. Bloodborne's a Sony exclusive, and all that. And they made all these exclusive and stuff like that, and they decided, okay, we want to have more. It's so weird. It's so weird because in the past few years we've done the unthinkable. We've gotten crossplay that they finally agreed upon between Sony and Microsoft. Something I didn't think was going to happen, well, very soon, but we've somehow managed to do that. We've somehow managed to get them to work together on crossplay. But in the same breath, they said, nah, screw this. We want to have exclusivity. We want to have more exclusivity. What are we going to do? Oh, we know. What if we just buy the studio that's making the games? Because then, if they're under our contract, we can decide what they want. We can tell them, hey, you're only releasing this on PC or Xbox. So there's been a bidding war, really, almost going on, where a lot of companies are being bought, well, mostly by Microsoft. Sony is doing some buying, but mostly by Microsoft, really huge buying. Um, like, from all the companies. But the biggest one, Activision Blizzard, as you know, that's the people who make Call of Duty and the people who make Diablo and stuff like that. And Blizzard also does Overwatch and all those ones. Um, there was a huge lawsuit for that because basically it was like many of millions of dollars that they want. I think it was like, how much was it? So $60 billion, I think, in the end to buy it.
Yeah,
Something like
somewhere
that.
around there.
So the lawsuit came about. Sony asked for a lawsuit because they said, in fairness, you're not being fair to the market now. Because if you decide to make Call of Duty exclusive, you're being there's supposed to be a market fairness where, like, you're not just pushing out all the little guys in terms of, like, doing what they want. But there was a lawsuit and everything. But let's just say Microsoft won. They finally bought Activision and Blizzard. And, well, whatever you make of that, I'm not too worried. Activision hasn't made a good game in 10 years. But when it comes to this now, the biggest effect we've seen now has happened. They've spent a lot of money on Activision, obviously, and now they're like, ooh, we kind of need to save costs somewhere because obviously we want to make a profit. How do we save costs? I know. Let's fire some people. So they're starting to fire people from the people they bought. So I'm kidding you not, 1,900 people lost their jobs at Activision Blizzard this past weekend or so. That's 1,900 out of 22,000. So 10% of the entire workforce lost their jobs in the past weekend. Just gone. No more jobs. And they've cancelled the Blizzard game that was coming up because they said, well, we can't afford to fund your Blizzard game. It's fine. Just, go work on Diablo 4. It's fine. Go give them live service skins or whatever. Now, that's the thing. Where do you think those 1,900 people are possibly going to end up? Maybe some of them go into something else. But I think if you have the knowledge of 1,900 people who know how to make a video game, who know how video games work, who know the whole process behind it, either they're going to end up with another company, or studios or whatever, or what we've seen is they create their own studio and then make their own games because now they get to be their own creative lead. And sure, it's not almost like in India. It's almost like they have a little bit more resource and stuff like that. Not a lot, because they're still independent. They're still operating with other publishers and stuff like that. But you're gonna get more people that are more charged to do something in the gaming world because now they want to say, "I'm gonna show you why you shouldn't let me go," and they have their own creative freedom. You're gonna get a lot more of that. It's happened now with this. It's happened across the pond. No, not across the pond, sorry. Across the pond because Embarker Group, which I believe is a Japanese group, has cancelled a Deus Ex game that was supposed to be Eidos Montreal's property. No, that won't be across the pond. That's Canada. Up north. It's up north. So, but yeah, they cancelled the Eidos Montreal thing, and that group that bought all those places has been bleeding money. They've been bleeding money like there's no tomorrow. So they're probably going to lay off more people. Sony's probably going to lay off more people from whoever studios they bought. They bought Bungie. Bungie's already laid off a bunch of people now that I think about it. You know what the irony was?
Oh, yeah.
Bungie laid off about 1,000 employees as well last year. You know, you know what? You know what was the best part? They laid off, I think, 1,000 people round about the festive times in November or something like that. You know what game award they won?
What's that?
The best community. The thriving community and firing people. It was what makes us come together. Woohoo! But I mean, same thing there. You fire all those people from Bungie. Those 1,000 people. I mean, you're talking about people who worked on Halo, people who worked on Destiny and stuff like that. They're gonna find a place in the market, either on their own, either with another studio, and they're gonna bring all of the ideas that they've always wanted to do with them, and they're gonna be charged to do it. So we might see a huge influx of new studios making new games and stuff like that, and I think ultimately is gonna give the AAA games a proper shove because of all these acquisitions and stuff. That's my standpoint. That's why I think it's actually a seriously debatable thing. Like I said, if I asked you this question 10 years ago, you would have been, no man, you're talking crap. There is indie games, but they're not making nearly as much money as AA games, and they're not nearly as popular. No man, I know you talk about that outlier Five Nights at Freddy's, man. That's one game. Name something else than Five Nights at Freddy's that's doing as well. I thought so. Go play Black Ops 2. It's fine. And then but now there's not nearly as much of a scoffing as it was back then. I think we are actively seeing it happen. It's gonna take a while. Like I said, you're gonna have to wait for the Unreal Engine 5 project life cycles to take place. You're gonna have to wait for all these people now that have been laid off to make their own studios, to start their own project stuff. You're gonna have to wait possibly for other things as well, like more AAA disappointments or more indie games starting to more frequently hit those highs, like what Lethal Company has and Among Us has and Five Nights at Freddy's has. You're gonna wait for that, but when they do, people are gonna start to sway, and I think people have already swayed, in a large way, especially with franchises now going almost gone, like big franchises. COD is in the mud currently. Battlefield has been in the mud now for 6 years, 7 years now. Need for Speed has been in the mud. That's just what I'm connecting off the top of my head. 3 huge franchises. FIFA is gone. FIFA doesn't even exist anymore. It's like EAFC now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's off the top of my head. 10 years ago, you wouldn't even imagined any of those 4 could have done something oh, those are the most amazing games. And they're all gone now. So, if that can happen, What do you think else is possible with all the stuff we have?
Mm,
It's I hope we see it. I hope we see it. I hope we can decentralize the gaming world. I hope we can come to a point where we don't even call it an indie game or a AAA game anymore. We call it, let's just play a game. Who made this? Oh, this company made it. Okay, we'll try it out. This company made it. We'll give them a chance or whatever. Or oh, this company made it. I know them. They've made another game or whatever. But it's not like we're tying the entire reputation of a company, and that's why we're gonna buy the game. Um, Activision made this. Activision is massive. We should try this game. Or, um, it's the next big game that everyone's going to buy. We're not. I hope we move away from that one day and we just play a game because it sounds fun, just because it sounds unique, and
mm.
maybe everyone has fun. Don't you miss that? Don't you miss having fun?
And I still do, but it's very limited. So
I think
yeah,
like I
I
said, I
guess.
think you need to pick it. Yeah. Anyhow, those are my thoughts. Do you have any closing thoughts for this nice short and sweet podcast episode?
I wanted to mention something earlier, but I completely forgot. When you were talking about indie games with some very interesting characteristics, not necessarily in terms of graphics or whatever. There's this game called Darkwood,
Oh
and if you
yeah.
thought Soma was really fucking weird, Darkwood is next level.
Wait.
It's I don't like the perspective. It's almost like an old school kind of video game. It's flat, you see the character from up
Oh
top,
yeah.
so you only see the head, and then you can see your perspective as it turns like this.
Yeah.
And then it's set in this post-apocalyptic kind of world, and then obviously the ending differs depending on the choices that you make and how you treat the NPCs or whatever. But it's so unbelievably, indescribably strange.
It's like a
But
Death
it's really
Stranding.
good. And it's not like one of those, oh, I'll finish it in 3 hours. I watched a playthrough that I think lasted almost 12 to 13 hours of constant pushing to get it done. That's not even because it's kind of open world, and that's not even exploring everything. That's just kind of trying to
Speed
complete
running.
the story.
It's like speed. Okay. Well, like I said, that's the thing also about indie games. We're gonna get larger indie games. Like how? Actually,
Mm.
curiously, since we did mention it's one of the award-winning ones, slow. How big? How long was Sea of Stars? Out of curiosity.
Well, my playthrough took me like 31 hours, but
Yeah.
uh, that is mostly because I was doing like a bunch of side content and collecting a bunch of stuff. But I
Yeah.
think the
Mm.
story would take around 15 to 20, depending on how fast you go and whatnot.
Okay, but let's
Mm.
take a general. Say some people would like to start counting, some people just complete the story. 25 hours. Now, put that into perspective. 25 hours for someone who made an indie game. An indie game. 25. 25. If you did put, how would I have made that 10 years ago? And that would literally been you grinding something. If it was 25 hours.
Yeah.
But this is
Mm.
25 hours of story content. 25 hours of, well, unique content in an indie game. And my sister now mentioned Darkwood. That's taking people 12 to 13 hours. And I'm assuming Darkwood's not even as big as Sea of Stars. I think Sea of Stars had a little bit of a budget, at least. This Darkwood's telling me it sounds like one guy in a basement type of thing.
No, Darkwood, I think it's 10 people. 10 people who made it, but it was 20. I think the first release was 2014, but
Yeah.
it had a bigger release in 2017.
You see.
That's only when it really got a lot of attention in 2017.
But still, like what I'm saying, this is what I'm saying. Imagine that. Imagine that 10 years ago. You're not gonna get it. So,
Mm-mm.
like I said, this is the state of indie gaming. I think we're going to see more people in it. I think we're going to see more people grow towards it, and hopefully, like I said, I hope that brings more ideas to the table, more genres people are willing to go towards with the indie games, more ideas being brought to the table, and more merging of ideas. I I'm really excited for the next few years in gaming because of this. And the fact that, like we talked in the past podcast episode, the state of gaming is improving and stuff like that. I think we're going to see a big turnaround for a lot of things, which I hope is coming to gaming. Like I said, it's a good time to be a gamer. You could have been there in the 90s or 80s and thought like, oh my gosh, this is the best time ever. Nah, we're in the best time ever, bro. There's no good old days. We're in the good current days. Most of the time. Most of the time. We just need a little bit of a revolution. That's the last piece of the puzzle. Become communist. Anyway, thank you for my two lovely people who have joined me, from Chrissy Chris and from Slow. I hope you guys also enjoyed it and could air out your opinions. It was fun having both of you again. Yeah, and from
Yeah, thanks, man.
the listeners again from this side, like I said, you might have your opinion, you might not be swayed by indie games yet, or you might have completely taken the side of indie games by now. I'd love to hear it from you as well. I hope you guys have a lot of things to say, so let them know in the comments down below. We're always interested in having that. But until the next podcast episode, you guys stay safe. We will have another chat soon. And yeah, keep well, guys.